Hello, Slut Car Drag Race fans. This is part one of the build of my 24-foot by 2-foot drag race slot car track. I know the tables are already made, but I would like to show you some of the things how we got this far. There are 3 8-foot sections. The slots haven't been cut, as you can obviously see. Really supported all the way and on wheel casters. On the wheel casters on the outside, they all have locks. And so I got it away from the wall so I can go ahead and cut the slots. Yes, it's 3/4 inch birchwood. Plus we had the frame on the underneath side to support the track. And also those that will cross. And we also have the in-between or 8-foot sections. What makes this track so unique is that from this end, which is about 34 inches high and will be raised to a level approximately 3/4 of an inch at the 8-foot section and so forth along the other 2 sections. Because most garage floors angle down about 3/4 of an inch every 8 feet. Due to this is because the water, if there's a water problem with a hot water heater, you want it to drain toward the street. Now what I want to show you is how I drew these 2 8-foot sections together and somewhat form a very smooth top surface. Used 6 of these pieces here, very similar to these, and also 1/4 inch all thread. As they get closer together, they get screwed into one another and they form a tight connection there. So I've got 4 pieces here to simulate underneath, and each one of these are screwed into here, up underneath, and here. Now, right here, they are not screwed in yet until I draw them together. So as we position the table closer and closer together, they operate like fingers. And let's see if we can simulate that. Close this up. Then you have the option to go ahead and screw those other ones in on the other side, and then use a 1/4 inch all thread to draw the tables together. This is the router that I'm going to go ahead and use to put the slots in. And yeah, darn thing's older than me. And it's at least over 30 years old, so I went ahead and attached this board to it, like so, and countersunk all these screws in, and then matched them up on the other side, like so. Of course, everything was correctly measured. There's no bit in there yet. And I went ahead and measured, so I'm putting the track slot from here to here about 7 inches over, and then from the other side to over here 7 inches in on that side. And so to make it correct, I'm using these little screen rollers I got from HD. Set them up at 7 inches from here to here. And if we flip this thing over, we'll be able to go ahead and cut that slot at the 7-inch mark. So I'm expecting the router bit to come in any day now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut the slot to a total of 9 millimeter. I'm not going to go ahead and cut 9 millimeter all at once. I'm going to use like 3, then 6, then 9. And so made this little template here. This is from here to here is 9 millimeter, the final cut, just to make sure. And when you start using the router, they tend to get hot, so it's always good to make a measurement. Make sure things don't get loose. Make sure you're right on that depth. So here's the end of the track here. And in order to get that router to work correctly at the 7-inch mark, I've got to extend it a little bit temporarily. So I put this temporary piece in, and along with these other pieces, it'll be built up on the end like so. Put those pieces in, they'll get screwed up underneath there, and make sure these are correctly aligned. Then I can go ahead and start with the 7 inches here, and I won't come up blindly making like a zigzaggy hole slot. It'll start early here, so this piece here will be a sacrificial piece. Then we'll go ahead and remove them and put our tape down or braid. Our router came in from Slot Car Corner, 1/8 inch carbide straight cut router bit. Looks pretty darn good. Can't wait to set it up. So before I cut the slot on the track, I went ahead and made a practice board to work on cars, and it is smooth as glass. That that slot is smooth as glass, so that router bit does work. Make sure you wear your dust mask, very fine dust particles. And yeah, that is a 66 Chevy 2 Nova. Make my own parachute type system. It works for me. Now, I probably won't show you when I'm cutting the slot into the track because there's so much dust. I don't want to get the camera all dusty. Don't forget your eye protection and hearing protection. Okay, so the day has come when I cut my slot, the beginning, about 1/8 of an inch, 3mm or so. Worked out well. So I got started. I did the 8-foot section here, and I measured the temperature of the cutter. And now inside the garage is 73 degrees. So I measured the temperature of the cutter after I cut an 8-foot section by this infrared thermometer from Harbor Freight. And it was actually 76 degrees. Well done. So I cleaned up every section as I go. And before I start cutting the next, the 6mm, I'll run a vacuum through the slot here first before I start cutting. Make sure any debris, any sawdust is getting rid of. I think I forgot to mention, when you're cutting the slot, take your time. Don't rush, don't push, and everything will turn out great. So I cut at a 1/2 inch per second. And again, I measured the temp on this last 8-foot section here of the cutter blade. It was 76 degrees. Instead of pushing it, it should have been, don't force the piece of equipment. If you have to force it, you've got some problems. Stop and correct it. So to clean up the slot, along with a vacuum cleaner, I got a stir stick. Looks like a tongue depressor. It's 1/16 inch thick. I wrapped it around with 220 and moved it in the direction of the travel of the slot car. Looks like this will work for me, guys. Thanks. Whew. Glad that router business over with. Had all that PPE stuff on. I couldn't breathe. Now it's done. So we're going to get ready to separate these things and to go ahead and put our track connectors in between. But before we do, I went ahead and loosen up the 1/4 20 all thread. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, I think it's going to be a little hard to separate the two, and I'm not going to put a screwdriver in between there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put the washer on and put the nut here, and then put another washer on, another nut, and just kind of separate it like that. And yes, just to keep the cost down, I'm just going to go ahead and use the copper foil tape I got from PCH Express. I'm sure there's others out there. Okay, we got those screws removed, the ones we needed. We're ready to go ahead and separate the two here. Also went ahead and removed the locks on the wheels on the outside. And I've got these standing by just in case, and you can already see the separation. Got the tape in. If we use it singular, it's 3/1000ths. If we double it up like we're going to go to, it'll be 6/1000ths. So let's try pulling it apart with the all thread. Okay, we went ahead and got it separated. Had to end up using smaller washers. The other ones were too big. And after about an inch, it separated very good. Just pulled it apart. And there are several reasons why I'm doing this, why I'm separating it. One, I got to go ahead and paint. But before we go ahead and do everything, this is our double piece of foil that was doubled up. And that was 6/1000ths. So it was a very tight fit here. That's when both these pieces were together. And also, in order to get it down to the piece of wood, I got a 1/4 inch Forstner bit. So we'll go ahead and drill 2 holes here and here, and then over here, here and here. And those will be connected up to our connectors here under the board from Slot Car Corner. So I was looking at the Forstner bit and where it had to go, and what I found out, I can't put it right there. It'd be best off to angle it like this, so I can get it like a 30 or 45 and that'll fit the width between there. So change of plans here. So I made up my experimental jig. I drilled it through, then came back and cleaned it up with this foil. Sharp edges. So now, this is just an experiment. I can put it through like that, and it'll catch that angle. I got another piece here. The backing is still on, so 3/1000 for one side, and then 3/1000 for the other side. So we have a total of 6/1000 here. And if we slide our table together like so, even like that. Now I'm forcing the other piece against this one here. Let's see if we can remove it. It's pretty tight. It slipped right out. So we won't have to make a groove over here. Oh boy, did I blow it on that calculation. It turned out to be 65. Let's see. 65. All right, I got my 2 holes drilled using this T-bevel here, set it for 65 degrees. It could be a little more steeper, but I'll work with this. And if I have to, because I did check it, it is tight. So I may have to put a couple of grooves in here and just go ahead and remove this and put it back on. That wood was so hard, I was afraid if I used a chisel, I would splinter. So what I did, I doubled up the cutter on my Dremel and drew the line and cut it like that. And you can see this one's not done. And using this as a backer, making sure everything is square true, I'm going to cut 6/1000 and then remeasure it with this. So, except this piece is not cut. I probably could have done it on this side here, but I didn't want to remove it. It's set. So I just removed this fingered thing here, and I'm going to do this side, and I removed this to get to this, and it worked. Same thing. Getting ready to go ahead and paint the track. I thought I'd go ahead and pre-stain it, but since I've got birch wood, a very hard wood, won't need to. Varathane says if you can depress your fingernail into an inconspicuous spot in the wood, if it goes in, you got a soft wood, you need precondition. Well, don't need that. So what I did, I put Kilz on the track, used just about a half of it for all 3 pieces. And I was going to use this, but this is too wide for the slot. This was left over from other projects. Got this from Walmart. And I thought, hey, why not this? This worked out great for the slot. And so all with the surface and the slot. So I used half of it, worked out good. Oh, so many details on this project. That it keeps me busy. After using the Kilz, went over it the next day with 220 paper and found out that had some divots in the wood, maybe 2 or 3, not much. And went ahead and filled it in with this plastic wood filler. Worked for me. Trying to come up with a color, so black is fine with me. So this came from HD Paint and Primer, and this is the sample card here, like it shows, and it's a satin black, smooth surface. And to roll the paint on, went ahead and got this applicator. I got sponge foam. Worked out pretty good. It's also not a bad idea to pick up some of these right after you get done vacuuming up, because there's always that fine dust. You want a perfect job, don't you? Well, I just got done. Started at 10 o'clock, ended at 11. So I vacuumed first, used the tack cloth, and put the second coat on. I'm filming right now, as you can see. I live in Arizona, and it's 68 degrees with the humidity at, we'll call it 55. Great for Arizona, good time to paint. And this is how much I had left in the can. Not bad. We are applying the first coat of the black, and it's coming out real good. And I forgot to mention, the best opportunity for us out in Arizona is the early part of March. So I forgot to tell you in that yesterday was March 11th, today's the 12th. A little bit cooler, but best time to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it right now. We'll end this session, and I'm going to go ahead and continue with part 2, and that'll be electrical, wiring, and copper tape, etc. And I really appreciate you guys for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in part 2.